afternoon, students, or good morning, depending on when it is that you have my class. Today is Thursday, October 8th, and there is no live instruction for your ELA class, for your reading class. However, you do have an assignment to complete today. Remember that you first need to complete today's due now, and then you can go ahead and complete today's assignment, which is called Siblings Spooky Narrative Arc. And so the directions are as follows. We are going to watch this video first, and in this video you're going to get instructions, and I'm also going to read this story for you out loud so that you can follow along and you read it as well. After you go ahead and watch this video, then you will be allowed to go ahead and answer the questions on the assignment. Today's assignment is going to be about practicing narrative arc. We've been discussing what narrative arc is since since this week. And what we know about a narrative arc is that it's a story. It's a story that has a beginning, middle, and end, which means that it makes it a linear narrative because things are happening in the way that they occurred. And so what you'll be doing is you'll pretty much be doing the plot. What is the plot of the story? Which means you're going to start off with the exposition. Who are the characters and the setting? Where does it take place? Then you're going to move to explaining what are the rising actions. What is it that leads to the main problem or to the climax of the story? Then you'll go ahead and tell me where is the climax of the story. And after the climax, you'll start analyzing where are the falling action. How does it begin to get resolved, or does it begin to get resolved in this case? And then lastly, we are going to get to the end, which is the resolution, right? Now, this is a Halloween spooky story that was actually written by Robert DeCari, who's a 16-year-old who entered a competition for Halloween scary stories, and he got first place. So I thought it was a neat way to go ahead and end our week for this week before you get to enjoy your 4-day weekend. A reminder, students, that this is due today during class. It is due at the end of class. If you don't have, for some reason, you have or need more time, then you need to contact me to let me know of that. Do not wait to complete this assignment until the last minute. This is what your assignment is going to look like. Siblings Spooky Narrative Arc. Again, it's already been created for you. There is no picture for you to go ahead and submit. All you have to do is make sure that you watch the video, listen to the story, and then complete the assignment. Now, what happens if you're the type of person that just by listening to the story once, you're not going to fully understand it? No problem. Watch the video again. What happens if you're the kind of person that needs to have the story in front of them to answer the questions? No problem. The video you can watch as many times as you want. The story will be in the video. But aside from that, I'm also going to place the PDF of the story under Files. So it will be available for you under Files, Class Materials, and it will be titled Siblings Spooky Story. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and move into this spooky, scary story. I thought it was a nice way to not get off track and still practice our narrative arc skills, but doing it with something different right before our 4-day break. So instead of working with the crossover, we're going to take a small, tiny break with the crossover, and we're going to do this with the story that we've never heard before, or that has nothing to do with the crossover and has more to do with the Halloween spirit. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay. So, and here we go. All right. Okay, there we go. Siblings by Robert DeCari. The nauseating smell stung her nose, filling the room as she lifted the sheet. Looking under it, she got another blast of the sickly, sweet smell, causing her to throw up at the sink. And an observation that was a bad idea. She gagged again at the taste. The very air had been rotting under the reddish white sheet. But she did not stop herself from looking at the scruffy corpse wearing the remains of some fine business suit. Its fine silk now grimmed and bloodied from the fall. And then there was a knife. A grisly affair. The handle smashed the impact upon the stone, its toothed blade standing up from his chest like a pole. Looking away, she stood up, letting the sheet fall again over the man, a fitting death blanket for such an act. The nervous police officer shifted from foot to foot under her steady gaze until she asked, her harsh voice causing him to flinch, "So why was I called in again?" The officer looked about at his partners, but they avoided his gaze. "Well, ma'am, this is similar to a murder you worked a year ago." She sighed. She had hoped that case was a straightforward one. Find the killer and put him away for good. She pressed for the death row sentence and got it. The circumstances provided for her. A pang of guilt struck her then. Maybe she was too harsh on... She brushed the thought away. He was a criminal and got what he deserved. "Ma'am?" The officer's voice snapped her out of her thought stream. "I'm sorry, repeat what you said." He gulped, mistaking her reply for one of hostility. "Well, ma'am, we were thinking that it has to be a copycat, 'cause he's dead, right? He has to be." She nodded unconsciously and repeated the officer's last phrase to herself. He has to be. It was cold and dusk was setting in as she made her way home. Fall was setting in and the dry, dead leaves danced across the old, worn pavement. The dark purples and reds of the sunset cast long shadows. To some of it might be a beautiful scene, but here it made the skeletons of the trees seem twisted, garnered, more threatening. She made it to her door just as the lampposts lining the streets flickered on one by one. The key slid into the door and retracted the bolt with a shunk. She stepped inside, shrugging off her light windbreaker onto the floor, glad to be in her house and safe from the prying eyes of the world outside. She flicked on the hallway's lights, not noticing the slight delay before they came on, giving a dull cast of light about the corridor. The messenger machine on her coffee table blinked on and off. Pressing the play button, she went into her bedroom, ready to change out of her work clothes. The machine played a single eerie tune, a funeral song, at the end of it, all the lights in her house went out. Growling her annoyance at this, she pulled on a t-shirt and padded out into the hallway. Blindly, she stumbled over something cold and slammed her head into the wall and slammed away her consciousness. She woke up, blackness still around her, but it was colder, and she shivered at the change in temperature. Still groggy, it took her a while to notice, but she was kneeling, her hands bound behind her with a thick, coarse rope. She twisted her hands then, trying out the strength of the bond, and she got it, for it was chafe and the burning feeling. Then the blindfold around her eyes was ripped away, exposing her face to the light of a single candle. As her eyes adjusted, she could 67 make out a stone altar. The altar where they had his funeral. The altar where she cried over his body, remorseful for what she had done to him. A deathly cold hand closed around her neck. The prick of a serrated knife tickled her spine, and a raspy, choking voice whispered next to her, "Hey sis,